YouTube live stream with me, Evan Grant, your Rangers insider. I hope I'm your Rangers insider. I hope Sean McFarland or I, or most preferably both of us, are your Rangers insider. I am wearing my Rodeo Goat hat to start this thing out, just so I can mention to you that tomorrow, and I probably should put the hat back on, tomorrow on Friday, and at all North Texas Rodeo Goats, we'll be having Mercy Street Day. We are raising funds for Mercy Street, a youth mentorship and sports program that helps kids in South Dallas. $1 from every Evan Grant burger sold all month at any of the rodeo goats is going to Mercy Street. On Friday, we will have an online auction, or rather an online raffle, which I like better than an auction because you can't get outbid. You just it's luck. It's $5, 5 tickets for $20. A lot of cool items. We got baseballs here from Michael Young, Nathan Evaldi. We've got a Corey Seager here that's a little bit off center. We've got a Jamie Benn sweater, autographed, a Stars ticket package, Rangers ticket package. Um, there are a lot of things there that you could actually put your raffle ticket money towards and help the Mercy Street cause out. And then I will be at the Arlington Rodeo Goat on Division from open at 10 a.m. until 12, along with the invasion from the ticket. And then the invasion will stay on site until 1 p.m. I will move over to my home rodeo goat, my hometown rodeo goat, the Design District Rodeo Goat, and I'll be there from 12:30 until they kick me out, serving my namesake burger, which, just so you can go back over this, it looks kind of like this. And that's a pretty good representation. It is a 7-ounce patty stuffed with bacon and Gouda cheese on a bun. It's topped with a slice of smoked brisket, a hefty slice of smoked brisket. It has a French fry potato salad kind of concoction on the bottom, a home run secret sauce aioli on top, and then see these little things here? Those are microgreens. And when you put micro in front of anything, it means it's much healthier. So it's health food. So come on out. Say hello. Ian Kinsler is going to stop by the Rodeo Goat in Dallas from 1:30 to 2:30, mostly to heckle me, but I'm sure he'll sign a few autographs for folks who want to stop by. So looking forward to all that. We're going to get into your questions in 1 second because as we allow them to continue to populate, I did want to mention one other thing. That is Ranger City Connects, which were launched today or revealed today, even though nobody saw them online. Nobody saw leaked footage of them that some 17-year-old kid with an iPhone, oh my God, can you believe that happened, took pictures of and posted weeks ago. But as you may now know, the Rangers' new City Connect jerseys say Tejas across the front. They've got more of a deepish red hue than the typical red jerseys you're used to with the Rangers. You've got to read a little bit about the story to understand it all. But a couple of things. I like the idea that you're trying to marry the Hispanic community and the Tex-Mex culture of Dallas Fort Worth with Rangers. I love the fact that Tejas obviously means friend in Caddo, and that's where Tejas in Texas was derived from. I think that's a very nice sentiment. And then I think there are some elements in the uniforms that I think are really cool. You'll notice piping and designs on the pants and on the cuffs of the shirt. That's it's kind of a call out to Mexican vaqueros and Mexican charros. But the design itself is stenciled block tees, the block tee from the 1970s uniform. So it's got that T motif all the way around, which is cool. I bring that up also because 3 elements in the uniforms call back to previous Rangers uniforms. The block T on the hat is the same block T the Rangers wore on their hats in the 1970s. The Tejas across the front is in the same font as the Rangers road grays from the 1980s. A lot of those pictures, obviously, that you remember are pictures of Nolan Ryan and Charlie Huff pitching in those jerseys, and the arrival of Ruben Sierra and Juan Gonzalez and all of that. And then the third element is that obviously they're red and they're reintroducing red, and they wanted to reintroduce red as a color because fans like the red, and that the red is a callback to the 1990s when the Rangers first introduced red as a primary color. Now I know it was a bright red, and this is more of a Mexican slash Mayan red. It's actually derived from the cochineal insect, which is crushed to make this pigment, and that was has some historical significance in Mexican culture. So, listen, all these uniforms are a construct of marketing, and that's what you need to know first and foremost about all of this. But I think at the end of the day, you want the story to be kind of cool, and you'd like for the jerseys to look good. And I think the Rangers accomplished both of those things with this jersey. Now, whether or not you want to go spend $500 on the City Connect jersey or not, that's up to you. I think the hats are $55. It's expensive stuff, and it's all a play for your money for more jerseys. But I do like the way they look. So with that, let's get to questions. I think we've got a few at least populated in here, and then I can go back to rattling off on stuff. Charles Tucker, who has become our leadoff man, asks, "Hey, I may sound like an older codger, but is it too much to get starters to pitch 7 innings or more? Announcers talk about pitchers being dominant, but only pitch 5 innings. To me, that's a good start." Um, Listen, Charles, I think early on in the season, you're not going to get guys going 7 on the regular. Certainly, George Kirby did that because he pitched 8 innings and 85 pitches the other night against the Rangers. But pitch counts are going to be managed, especially with the Rangers, with Nathan Eovaldi and Jacob DeGrom and their injury histories. The Rangers are going to monitor those guys both in their mid to later 30s more closely, and so they're going to work them slowly in. Um, I thought Mackenzie Gore could have gone deeper on Wednesday. He pitched 5 shutout, 1 hit innings. It was really impressive. But afterwards, I thought Skip Schumacher had a rational explanation for it in that he's the one guy who's pitched on 4 days rest on back-to-back turns. Um, and they wanted to make sure they don't overload him early on in the season. So they were going to keep him between 80 and 90 pitches. He threw 82 pitches in 5 innings, and the Rangers deemed that was enough. Turned out the bullpen turned in 4 no-hit innings or 4 shutout innings. 4 shutout, 1 hit innings. So worked out well for everybody. Charles, I don't know if I would say you're an old codger. Everybody's got the different lenses through which they view baseball. Um, there's nothing wrong with wanting pitchers to go 7 innings. It just doesn't happen that frequently anymore. And I do think you will see Ranger pitchers start to go 6 and a little bit more than 6 more regularly. But I think this first 3 weeks of the season, the Rangers are going to slowly build up to that. T. Henderson, hope you're doing well. How do you feel about? I feel well. I feel great. Thanks for asking. I hope you're well too. How do you feel about Jacob Junis taking over the 9th inning? I think he and Wynn definitely could hold it down for a while. Couple things here. Let's remember that we've got so many Jacobs on this club that you have to make sure we spell each Jacob the right way. Jacob Junis is K, even though he doesn't strike out a ton of hitters. That's my spelling and great spelling grammar police moment for the day. But look, he's been effective. He's been really efficient. He had back-to-back saves on Monday and Tuesday through 19 pitches in 2 innings to get that done. So you're not going to throw him on 3 straight days right out of the chute, but I think that also leaves open the possibility that at some point in time this year you could go to him 3 straight days based on workload. He's not a traditional closer, but what he does have is he's got both a slider and a changeup, and the changeup is a really late developing pitch for him. He really kind of got comfortable with it last year, started throwing it more, and he's thrown it almost 50% of the time. to start this season. He's thrown it to left-handers as well as right-handers, and he just feels more confident in it. And then when you can do that, and you can also tunnel your slider out of it, similarly, you really have some weapons. I think that's what we're seeing early. Will that last all season? I don't know. Um, but the Rangers, for right now, answers for the Rangers are all very transient. And right now, he's the right answer at the back of the bullpen. I think that you also have to factor Jacob Latz into that. He's held hitters to an 0 for 28 to start the season. He's been their best pitcher so far. He's made a spot start. He's pitched multiple innings. He has pitched, excuse me, towards the end of the game. I'm boring myself already. Great. Um, and I think he's going to be the high leverage lefty going forward. Whether that means he gets some save opportunities or whether it means, he pitches the seventh if they've got a little lane of lefties coming up, or the eighth if they've got a lane of lefties coming up. I think the Rangers can employ him in any of those situations. So I think that has been an encouraging development over the last week. Um, I know that Kelly Mann here has also mentioned Luis Crivello for the ninth inning. Uh, I get that sentiment too. I think that's a little bit early on that. Crivello came up through 2 innings, very impressive on Wednesday. He was the last guy left off the roster at the end of spring training. Um, he pitched well enough to earn a spot on the opening day roster. Sorry, between allergies and yawns, I'm so tired. Um, and he also, you know, he gives them a guy who has an above average fastball. He's not 98, 99. He's 95 to 96. But he gives them a guy who has a higher velocity fastball. Did not walk guys for much of spring training. That's been impressive. And I've said this on any number of podcasts. The Rangers podcast at the Morning News, the Sports Day Insider podcast at the Morning News. I've talked about it on radio shows. For this bullpen to really get its legs, somebody is going to have to be a surprise. Now you can say Junis is your closer, surely is a surprise, but this team had Jacob Junis as a contributor. They expected Jacob Junis to contribute in a meaningful way. I'm referring to somebody coming from out of the proverbial woodwork to really make a significant contribution. And I think Crivello is primed to be in that kind of guy. Um, he got a taste last year. I think he came back with a real purpose. He passed on pitching for Venezuela in the World Baseball Classic so that he could try and nail down a spot in the Rangers bullpen. Um, and I'm going to keep an eye on him. I think he's got the opportunity to continue to work his way into higher leverage roles for the Rangers as the season progresses. And that, again, is something they need. Carson read a piece in the DMN that CY indicated the ball is actually flying a few feet more than last year. Have they made any tweaks to the ballpark itself to improve how the ball flies? Carson, there haven't been any real tweaks to the ballpark. And I know what you're referring to. The Rangers have done a small study. Obviously, they've only played 6 home games. But through the first 5 home games, balls that had been hit, I believe, between 95 miles per hour and higher, or at least between 95 and 105, were carrying an extra 4 feet than what they did last year. I think Chris Young has felt that the numbers were really depressed in the first half of last year, but the Rangers felt like they saw a correction upwards in the final 2 months of last month. There's nothing the Rangers can really do about the ballpark conditions at this point in time except play more and more to whatever conditions are presenting themselves to the Rangers. And I think they've done a pretty good job of that, which is to create a more multifaceted offense, an offense that will walk more. I know they've been off to a slow start walk-wise. Um, an offense that will advance runners, that will take advantage of mistakes, that will hustle out infield hits, that does view contact as an asset much more than maybe previous folks did, and I think that will allow them to win some more low scoring games. I don't know that this ballpark is going to be conducive to an 8 run offense day in and day out, but I do think the Rangers can optimize their offense a little bit more, and I think they have done a good job of that so far this year. I do want to point out that look, whether you look at that Seattle series and look at the fact that they faced Gilbert, Kirby, and Wu, or any of their early season matchups, they've really faced perhaps the toughest slate of starting pitchers in the major leagues, if not the toughest and the second toughest, based on whatever their internal metrics are. Um, and they're 7-5, and so results matter. No, you're not scoring runs. My dog is barking. Would everybody like to see the dog? Birdie, would you please hush? Thank you. Um, this is a really high tech operation here, folks. But listen, to go back to my point, they're scoring runs in different fashions than they did last year. And I think if they do that, the bats will heat up, the quality of pitchers they're facing will come down, and I do think you'll see more offensive production. Um, as far as changes to the ballpark, just in case anybody was wondering, there will be no physical changes to the ballpark. The Rangers can't do anything in terms of dimensions until the offseason. So if the Rangers even want to entertain that, it's not something that can happen midseason. So if you expect to see any kind of changes, it's going to be at least 2027 before that happens. Um, how will the Rangers do on the West Coast road trip? Where will Bradford slot in the rotation or the pen? Well, those are two very different questions. Gene, look, again, I think that I've been on record multiple times saying this first 40 games of the season is a real tough stretch for the Rangers. And you saw, they went to Philly and faced the National League championship participant. Baltimore is an improved team. Cincinnati was a playoff team last year. Seattle went to the AL championship. They're going to Los Angeles to face the Dodgers. And then they wrap up that three-city road trip that they start on Friday back at Seattle for 3 games, where they've really struggled. So it's going to be a challenge. You hope to survive on the road. And so look, if the Rangers play 10 games on that trip, they play 3 in LA, 4 in Sacramento, and 3 in Seattle. If you go 5-5, it's a successful road trip. You go 6-4, it's a big win. And any better than that, it's an absolute home run. But look, the Rangers didn't survive on the road the last couple of years. They were not a good team on the road. The fact that they went on the road and won back-to-back series to start the season in Philadelphia and Baltimore was a good sign. If they come out of this next road trip 5-5 on that, it'll be good. It'll be a really good start. They'd be through the all their road games in April, because they come home after that and have their own 9 game homestand, and play a stretch of 15 of 21 at home. So there would be the opportunity to hopefully surge a little bit. But I think they're playing better on the road than they did a year ago for sure. The second part of your question was where will Bradford slot in the rotation or the pen? I think that's very much up in the air. Um, you would think that he'd be a candidate to replace Kumar Rocker in the fifth spot if needed. Kamar's gotten off to a good start. Cody is being given some extra time to recover from his first rehab outing. I don't think the Rangers see a solution there until sometime in May at the earliest. And let's see where things are. Let's see if the Rangers have a need in the rotation at that point in time, or if they have a need for a multi-inning reliever in the bullpen at that point in time, and how they want to play that. I think it's too early to really get a feel for which way the Rangers will go with Cody Bradford once he's ready. Steve Solomon. Hi, Evan. What do you think about the Rangers getting ahead of the market by locking up Jack Leiter? If you agree, whose contract would be a good starting point? All right, Steve. I'll be forthright. I don't have a great deal of comps for the pitchers right now. I had focused more on what might be a good comp for a Wyatt Langford long-term contract. I'll have to get back to you on Leiter in terms of a comp there. Um, but yeah, I mean, what I've seen of Jack Leiter over the last year plus two starts is impressive, and I think he's continuing to improve. And I think he's the way this rotation is set up, he's the number four starter, and he's a really high quality number four starter. Um, would I probably like to see a few more starts this year before I'm ready to really push for a deal? Yeah. Would a would a deal in the off season maybe make a little bit more sense? Perhaps you don't really want to get into the weeds of trying to negotiate contracts in season if it's going to cause an issue for a player. Um, so I think that would be up in the air. Jack just changed his representation. He's joined CAA, and so there's going to be a little bit of I guess, a get to know you period with Jack, his new agents and new representation, and how his representation values him to the Rangers. So I think that's still very much up in the air. Um, I don't know why I'm yawning so much. I will say I went to Rodeo Goat today. I had a burger. It wasn't the Evan Grant burger, and it does. I think it has put me on the verge of needing an afternoon nap. Um, Richard Jones asks if the Rangers are in the market for a closer at the deadline, do they have enough to trade? I still don't not get not letting CY spend a little more last December instead of depleting a thin farm system. Um, I think they'll have enough if they want to make a trade to go and get a closer. Now it may impact the veritable quality of that closer, but I also think there are going to be some guys available who are on long term deals um, who non contending teams simply want to get rid of and save some money. Um, come on. Here we go. Here's Birdie, the dog with the loudest mouth in the neighborhood. There she is. She's going to sit on my lap for a little bit. Um, the, the Rangers did deplete the farm system. Do think there's a possibility that some guys this year may perform well, and that may well help improve and improve that system capital that they have to trade. So I think it's still kind of a wild card. That's great. Um, this is what you get when sorry, folks. I think there's a lot to be done there, but I know the capital that they I pitched Davis had on hand and looking at the guys who might be available. I didn't necessarily pick a guy who was a closer, but he did close some games for the Rangers last year in Sean Armstrong. I think that's a guy they should have brought back. He's making $5 million in Cleveland this year. If the Guardians are not in contention, I think they'll be wanting to move him for whatever they can get back. And I think that would be a reasonable acquisition for the Rangers. They're not going to go out and get Edwin Diaz or Johan Duran or somebody like that. I don't know what will be available to them at that point in time. I do think their trade capital is somewhat diminished, but I also think that there will be a trade out there. I guess the best way for me to sum this up is if you've got to fill a hole at the deadline, um, I think it's most realistic for you to try and fill a hole in the bullpen, whether it's a closer or a guy who can step into that or who can close some games or can give you more looks in the bullpen. Whatever the case, I think that's the quote unquote happy to see Josh Smith get a couple of hits yesterday. Is um, I don't know why. Uh, yeah, go on, Brady. Get me out, folks. Like I said, it's entertaining here, left and right. All right, where'd that question go? So happy. Ed was happy to hear Smith got a couple of concern. Somebody would say it was kind fisking Josh of hitter. Um, has a team can do. Okay, I'm sorry. Was a little bit distracted there. Um, the team concerned. I think the Rangers aren't that concerned with Wyatt's slow start. I think there's a little bit more concern with Josh Smith because again, you chop up numbers however you want, but we've been over the story about Josh's poor second halves, and the concern that either he was fatigued last year or that he got into some bad habits. And when you come back out in a slow form, I guess you lean towards maybe there's some bad habits there. Uh, I think this team has played well enough to kind of withstand a couple of guys struggling. Um, I don't think there's long term concern about Wyatt, but certainly you'd like to see Wyatt Langford have more than one walk, which he took his first walk on Wednesday. Um, I think he has struggled a little bit with hitting in the number two spot ahead of Corey Seager. I think we've seen pitchers pitch him a lot differently this year. And I think that's caused him some early season struggle. The one play where the Rangers have, made some degree of hit at third base where they're giving Ezekiel Duran more run. Now, you could get to a point where you consider Duran an everyday player. Duran plays some at second base, and Josh Jung gets more run at third base. But right now, it's Duran at third base, Smith at second, and Young is probably slated to play more against lefties. And so you could possibly have a situation here where what you get is ultimately um, Duran plays against right-handers. Duran moves to second base against left-handers, and Josh Jung comes into the lineup against left-handers. That gives you more right-handed bats, gives you guys who are more successful against lefties than Smith. That's one way of handling it. Rangers don't have a whole lot of other ways. They can play Sam Haggerty some at second, but Sam's really only a good play against left-handed pitching. Um, Cody Freeman is still down, so he's not an option. So the Rangers are going to have to, what's the right word? Scramble a little bit if their second baseman doesn't heat up here quickly. Um, but they've got versatility. They've got versatility with Duran, and that gives them multiple options. All right, I got to get back to the list of questions here. Kelly asks again, it seems like the park is a tribute to former Rangers, so hesitant to move in the fences. Listen, Chris Young's not going to let the tributes to the former Rangers in the dimensions impact his decision making. They'll find some other way to make tributes to other Rangers if the Rangers deem that this is truly a pitcher centric ballpark. I think he does not want to go down that road. I don't think he wants to think that there is an excuse for the offense not producing. And so they're going to continue with this, certainly through this year. We'll see if a multifaceted offense and tiring pitchers and getting more guys at the back of the rotation as the season progresses, if that makes a difference in the run production at Globe Life Field. But, you know, You face three guys who could figure into the Cy Young candidate, the Cy Young conversation this year in 3 straight days. And the bottom line is you beat them. So that's where I think the Rangers' head is at right now. Let's focus on what we're doing well and not what we don't have any control over. Carson, with Latz and Garcia being the only relievers with options, does this make Baumler the prime DFA candidate? It would be unfortunate to miss out on a potential 6 years of club control. Yeah, I mean Carson, this is the bailiwick that comes with having a Rule 5 guy. It gives you less flexibility in the bullpen. That said, the Rangers. I don't want to say the Rangers found an injury for Baumler, but he certainly ended up on the injured list very quickly with a strained intercostal, and that buys them some time on that front. It does allow them to now bring up Luis Crivello, who has options. So if they do need to use Crivello for a longer stint, they then have the ability to call somebody else up. It's going to get more sticky here in a week when Josh Spores has his next minor league assignment clause due. Rangers either need to pay that or potentially give him his release. He can pursue a deal with another club. I would expect that either the Rangers will find a way to get him to the big leagues at that point in time. I think he hit 95.5 with his last outing at Round Rock. I think the Rangers will either find a way to get him up here, or they will extend that. They will extend him that assignment clause, which is another little pool of money that buys him out of being able to accept to take free agency. The only hang up in any of this is if a major league team comes calling and says they have a spot for Josh Spores that they're willing to give to him, then the Rangers have to make a decision, either call him up or give him his release. John, uh, why do the Rangers have the fewest ABS challenges? They've only challenged 12 calls. Um, Twins have challenged 42. Yeah, there's several reasons here. I think number one, the Rangers catchers haven't had a ton of challenges on their end because the pitchers have been in the strike zone and they've gotten strikes called. Haven't had a ton of balls in high leverage situations or high leverage counts that matter. Um, the second part is, Skip Schumacher stressed early in spring training that this team, he wanted this team to use those challenges in a wise and sage manner, to not burn challenges early in counts with little leverage. I think some other teams have been more willing to experiment with it. But I also think the Rangers, in a tribute to how much more team first they appear to be, seem to be reticent to use one of the challenges and be wrong and potentially hurt another player later in the game who would like to use a challenge and not have one available to him, then take the risk in their own count. When I had done the last time I looked at this was at the end of the Baltimore series. I haven't looked at it since the homestand started, but at that point in time, the Rangers had 24 pitches outside the zone that were called strikes. 12 of those were on first pitch counts. And so those are very rarely going to get challenged unless, the ball is 6 inches off the plate, because that's not going to change a ton. Yeah, it puts the pitcher ahead versus being the batter ahead, but we're talking about high leverage counts. 1-1 is a higher leverage count. Two strike counts are obviously higher leverage. You get to a count, you get to full count, that's almost automatic. So it's a work in progress for the Rangers. Skip has said on a couple occasions that maybe his messaging hasn't been as good as he would like, and that people have read into that hey, we're just trying to hold on to challenges, and that is not the case. So they're trying to communicate better there. Are the Rangers happy with the progress that Rocker has made? I'm happy he had a good first start. I think they're thrilled, and they should be. Kamara appears to have gotten his shoulder up higher, allows him to get more on top of the ball, which will let him go and really drive his fastball down into the bottom of the zone with his sinker. And so you're seeing much more difference between his four seamer and his two seamer and where they're landing in the strike zone. Um, Not nearly as many pitches in the heart of the strike zone. So they him much more effective. Uh, it also, when you do that, it makes you're breaking balls a little crisp. I think that's what we've seen. It's a really big priority for him this spring. But when his stuff has been as good as it's been, he hasn't had to go to the changeup. And so the later you can, push that back, I guess if you don't have complete confidence in it, the better. Between Teodo, God, I can't see with my eyes, my glasses. Between Teodo, Church, Alstrom, Collier, and Diaz, how would you think? How would you rank them as far as chances to significantly contribute to the Rangers bullpen this season? Hmm. Um. Whew, good question. Emiliano Teodo missed so much time during spring training that he was behind guys. Same really with Mark Church. I guess, even though Gavin Collier has less experience at higher levels than those guys do, he's certainly got plus stuff. And if Collier throws strikes, he's going to move fast. So I guess Gavin Collier has the best chance. Um, I've always been a fan of Mark Church's stuff. I'd like to see him get healthy and be able to go out there continuously. I don't have a ton of faith in Alexis Diaz at this point in time, just because it's been multiple years that we've seen both leakage in the fastball velocity and his inability to throw strikes. So there's not a great track record for me to fall back on. I guess I would go Collier, Church, Alstrom, Teodo, Diaz for now. Um, we're not out of questions. Are we out of questions? Have I blazed through these questions in 40 minutes? Um, I think we're at the end of the question list, producer Joey. All right, I'm guys. I'm sorry about my internet today. I'm at home. It should be tip top. I'm sorry if it's been a bit wonky. I'm gonna wrap it up here. Look, I will wrap up the first homestand. I think it was successful for the Rangers. Yes, they went 3-3. They beat Seattle. They swept Seattle, and I think that's the most important takeaway from that homestand. They showed the team that was the AS champion last year that they can beat them, and I think that's really important. I do like the way the Rangers are running the bases. I think it's been much more aggressive, and I think it's been much more opportunistic. Um, and I and I've seen in the last there are guys who are stepping up, and it does seem now like you've got you had Cole Winn pitch the ninth on Wednesday and got the save in relatively easy fashion, and so you've got Junis, you've got Winn, you've got Latz, uh, Tyler Alexander has pitched fairly well, Jalen Beeks has pitched well, uh, Luis Crivello made a nice debut. Chris Martin even had an 8 pitch 1-2-3 inning, and so he struggled some, but the Rangers got him into a lower leverage situation on Wednesday, and he responded. So that's a good sign. Um, I'm going to finish with Kelly's question about Josh Jung. Is Josh Jung hurt? No, he had some what was described to me as lower body fatigue, maybe from his ramp up at the end of spring training, taking a bunch of at bats to try and get ready for the season. after missing 3 weeks with a muscle strain. Um, I think that right now the bottom line though is Ezekiel Duran is outplaying him. Josh is chasing well over 45% of the pitches he's seeing this year, and that's just not acceptable. And until he's willing to narrow down his chase lane, he's not going to get a ton. He's not going to get the lion's share of the playing time. Josh plays a really good defensive third base, but he chases too much. He doesn't hit for enough power, or hasn't the last couple of years. He's not a high average hitter, and he's not a high on base guy. So as an offensive player, he just profiles right now as kind of average. And um, I think the Rangers want better than just average, and they've seen a lot of him be average. So they haven't seen quite as much of Ezekiel Duran be average the last couple of years, and so they're giving Ezekiel Duran more opportunity to win more playing time. Duran's been a little bit better of an option against right-handed pitching, and so he's getting more chances against right-handers over the last few days, and probably will continue to get that for the time being because he's contributing to wins. So it's going to be up to Josh to make some changes uh, to his approach and find a way to be more direct with his approach. Listen, I go back to the first hit he got this season, which was huge. He'd gone 0 for 18. First hit came in Baltimore. He got down 0-2 in that count, rallied back, and then singled home a run. But I go back and I look at the pitch locations in that at bat, and even that didn't kind of match up as uh, rational because he swung at a first pitch fastball that was above the zone. Then he took an 0-1 fastball in the middle of the zone. I mean, a pitch in the middle of the strike zone. So now he's down 0-2. He gets behind. He fights back to full, which applaud him for. Um, and then he gets a single. But in my mind, you get to if you get to if you start out 1-0, it may change the complexion of the at bat. If you swing at a 1-0 pitch in the heart of the zone, you've got more chance to drive it than you do other pitches. Um, if it changes the complexion of the bat and the pitcher is a little bit more uh, pitching around you, then you take the pitches and you get a higher leverage perspective in that at bat. And so, what we've seen from Josh is I think he has 6 hits to this point. All 6 are singles. And that's just, it's one thing if you're hitting 350 with all your hit singles. You're not. So Rangers need to see more out of him in some capacity offensively because while his defense is good, it's not that much better than Duran's to merit playing him over Duran if the Rangers believe Duran can give him as much offense, if not more, than if not more than Josh Jung can. So that's where I'll get off on that. The Rangers are in LA this weekend. Sean McFarland is with the team in LA. I will join the team in Sacramento and be with them for the week that follows for 4 games in Sacramento and 3 in Seattle. As always, please like the video. Please subscribe. I know it was more of a work this time because I've got this post-burger hangover going and our internet was a little bit janky. But I really appreciate the enthusiasm y'all have dedicated to this. I love the questions. I hope it's been good for you. And remember, if you've got free lunch tomorrow, come on out to the Rodeo Goat in Dallas or the Rodeo Goat in Arlington. Let me serve you a burger. We can talk a little bit more ball or at that point in time, and we can help a great cause. So until I guess sometime next week.